talk is entitled Mental Health in Business. Thank you very much, Marjolein. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you so much, Tanya. My talk is titled or rather untitled because I changed my mind on it so much given the current climate. And ultimately, what I really want to give people is some really easy things to take home and implement at home. But I'd like to start with asking you all to imagine that you are walking home from the supermarket. This is a normal supermarket shop. This is not, you've not panic bought Tesco out of toilet roll. You're carrying a normal amount of shopping. It's no more than a 10-minute walk, but probably about halfway back home, you realize I'm too tired. I'm too tired to get the full distance home. And you have to sit and stop on one of your neighbor's garden walls because you're so exhausted that you genuinely don't think you can make the rest of the 5 minutes home. That was me at 27. And I remember telling people at the time that I felt like I was trapped in the body of an 87-year-old. No offense to anyone who is 87 and was probably more agile and energetic than I was at the time. But I was ill all the time. I had a chest infection and 2 kidney infections in the space of a year. And looking back now, I recognize that these were the physical symptoms of burnout. I went to my GP, got referred to a kidney specialist, and I was told that everything was fine. There was nothing to worry about. Everything was normal. So I didn't know what to do. I'd acknowledged that the stress of the role that I was doing had had an impact on me physically and psychologically. But what I hadn't factored in was the emotional, psychological, and physical support that I needed to heal at the time. So I'd removed the stressor, I left my job, but the impact was sticking around. And actually something Clinton said earlier about how important respect was, I realized that was a big factor in how I was feeling with my employer at the time. Now, the problem is that there is still a societal issue around the glorification of busyness. And I think it's really, really important to increase the awareness of the symptoms around burnout. So I think, Tanya, the work that you do is incredible. And it's so, so important, especially around people that are working on their own or in smaller teams, because you might not have that HR department to say, actually, you know, this is what's going on. And thankfully, the conversation around mental health and mental health in the workplace has moved forward so much and into a much more visible space than 6 years ago. And the World Health Organization now does recognize burnout as a condition, and there is a lot more support in place. But something that's really important is that you need to support your physical recovery, because once you've pushed your adrenal glands to the point of burnout, that's a physiological process in the body, and there are interventions that are necessary. Your main stress hormone, your cortisol, you've got a daily rhythm of it. And what can happen if you're burnt out is that this rhythm becomes dysregulated. So when you're going through periods of chronic stress, your normal rhythm of stress hormones becomes impaired. For me personally, I didn't realize what I was going through at the time. I waited a long time to ask for help. And then when I did, I felt a lot of avenues were shut off. My employer wasn't helping me. My GP's support was limited. I had a personal recommendation for a therapist who then told me they couldn't see me because they were speaking to someone who's too close to me, one of my family members. So I felt that very isolated and very alone. But as difficult as my personal experience was, I'm really grateful for it, and I wouldn't change it, because ultimately it's why I'm here today, and it's what led me to retrain and become a nutritional therapist and support clients to transform their hormone health so that they can thrive. And actually, with the majority of my clients, the stress response is having a massive impact on their symptoms. And again, this is why educating around what those symptoms of burnout are important. Now, something that's really valuable for my clients is finding out actually what their daily cortisol pattern is, and finding out, is it dysregulated? Because you can then put very targeted recommendations in place. But today I'm speaking as someone who's come through burnout, so personal experience of it, and knowing how to support myself and others. And although I recognize the importance of mindset and shifting your perspective, that's not what I'm going to speak about. We've heard from some incredible speakers already who speak on that. And today I want to talk about the physical things, the physical supports for your body. However, a caveat, mindset and psychological support were really important to me. Now, 5 steps that you can really hello camera. 5 steps that you can really easily implement to build up your strength. Stress is inevitable. So it's really important that you are supporting your body and sending messages to your brain that your body is safe. And so everything I'm recommending is to make sure that you're moving your body out of the stress response. Now, hydration. Who here drinks enough water every single day? Oh, okay. Andrew, yes. Vivian, yes. Tanya, not sure. And I can't see anyone else. Notice I didn't put my hand up because sometimes I forget. But dehydration. I can see Vivian's got water right now, top marks. Or maybe it's gin, who knows. Being dehydrated is a major stressor on the body. Go, Tanya. But something that's really important, it's the water intake is different for everyone. You can go online, you can check based on your body weight and your activity level what's recommended for you. If you are drinking alcohol or if you're drinking caffeine, it's really important to replace that with water as well. And that is often something that people forget. So they'll say, yeah, I'm having 1.5 liters of water. If you're then drinking 6 coffees, ignore the fact that that's awful for your adrenal glands. You need a lot more water. Okay, so bear that in mind. Step 2. You need to ensure that you have adequate nutrients in your diet. Breakfast cereal, grabbing a wrap from Pret, although obviously you can't do that right now, getting a delivery from Pret and having a lasagna for dinner, probably not going to support your body enough in terms of nutrients. And bear in mind, when you're very, very stressed and you're producing a lot of cortisol, you're going to burn through things like magnesium, vitamin C, and B vitamins very, very quickly. So it's important to make sure you've got adequate nutrition. And that's why, as nutritionists, we cannot talk about vegetables enough. Now, step 3, and this gets complicated. So make sure you have a pen. I'm going to talk about sleep. We're going to talk about an equation. Now, if you do have a pen, Angie's ready. Write down what time you need to wake up in the morning. Now, I'd like you to subtract the ideal number of hours of sleep for you. So for me, this is 9. I'm very sleepy. So then subtract another 30 minutes. Okay, that is your bedtime, people. That is when you need to be tucked up in your PJs, face washed, teeth clean. That is your bedtime. And the number of clients that I speak to that don't even leave enough time to get the ideal number of hours, let alone the fall asleep time, there's not a single one. So bear that in mind. Keep that equation very close to hand. Now, step 4, physical movement. Okay, again, it's very personal. It's a Goldilocks scenario. You need to find what's right for you. But if you're incredibly stressed with work and exercise is physically exhausting for you, then high intensity interval workouts and long distance running, probably not the one right now, babe. So maybe try something like a restorative, gentle yoga class, and that might be enough movement for you, but really listen to your body on this. And then step number 5, mindfulness. And actually Maya made a really important point. This can be different. Sorry, not Maya, actually it was Hina. This can look different for everyone, and it doesn't necessarily mean meditation, but it's a time for you to tune in, have quiet time. And the key to this is that you're sending a message to your brain that your body is safe, and you're going into the parasympathetic nervous response. So you can start with just 60 seconds a day. You can do a breathing exercise, you can get a YouTube meditation, but even just 60 seconds, start small and build it in as a daily step to feel better. Now, when you are going through chronic stress, your cortisol rhythm changes, or it can change. Like I said earlier, that it can be really useful for people to actually measure what their response is doing. So for the people having to drag themselves out of bed in the morning, and then when it comes to bedtime, you're physically exhausted, but your brain is going at 100 miles an hour, that suggests that with this tired and wired feeling, there's something going on there with your cortisol levels. Now, as human beings, we're incredible, and we've created, all these amazing things in our society. But ultimately, we only have one stress response. So that is the same whether you are about to get hit by a car or if you get a passive aggressive email from a colleague. It's the same stress response. It's those same hormones that kick in. And what I found is that one of the main issues when we've been through chronic stress is that as soon as you start to feel a little bit better, you slam your foot back on the accelerator to get up to speed. You want to get everything done again. So 4 years after my initial dalliance with burnout, I had a panic attack. And although I don't blame myself, I'd certainly overcommitted, and I had not put all the steps in place to support my body through the recovery the first time round. My personal experience with mental health struggles, I was the baby bear. A lot of it was grounded in fear. I was scared of underperforming. I was scared of the reactions of my employers. I was scared that nothing I was doing was right. And now with my own business, I talk myself out of the fear response, but you worry that you make the wrong decisions. And this affects people on every level, whether you're an employee answering to your boss, whether you're a tech founder who's having to prepare something for your investors, whether you're a service-based business owner answering to your clients. Stress is inevitable. And so building in these coping mechanisms to manage is vital for your physical and mental health. Thank you.
Woohoo! Big applause. Thank you so much, Marjolein. Always super insightful listening to you, and I always learn so much. And I made my notes, and it's what I find so amazing. Yeah, absolutely. It's really practical things, that you can take away from your talks that are very, very easy to implement, or if repeatedly, it can become easier to implement. So I really appreciate that. We've had some couple of comments so far. Elliot did ask, does it count when you have a baby with regards to the sleep aspect, I believe? So it's a very good question.
It is a caveat, obviously, and everyone's different. And I think what I would say for you when you have a young child is maybe if you can, when they are napping during the day, try and build napping time for you, or go do something like a yoga nidra, so that can be really meditative and it can put you in that parasympathetic state. But yeah, sorry Elliot, you're gonna have to accept that sleep for you right now is like toilet paper. It's hard to get your hands on.
Very, very well said. Very relevant. Yeah, there's been a couple of other questions as well. Well, a couple of comments. Clinton said, great presentation, really enjoyed that, found the content useful, loved your presentation style and credibility. And yeah, another thank you. A question here. I have a history, this is from Vivian, I have a history of low blood sugar and cortisol. I get bloods tested every year. I'm on a good diet, though how can I check my cortisol level? I had a bout at the end of the year, I got really tight, sorry, I think that's a spelling error. Thighs got really tight, so I've started to take vitamin E as well as other vitamins. Is there anything else I can do or need to take?
In terms of measuring your cortisol, there's really good, you can either measure it in saliva, there's a few private labs that do that, or I use a test that looks at cortisol in urine, and it looks at it for 4 points during the day, so you really see the daily rhythm. When you test it in serum, that's a kind of snapshot, so it's single level. And in terms of keeping your blood sugar tightly regulated, it can be that your body then starts relying on cortisol and insulin to keep it regulated. So I would focus really carefully on balancing your meals with protein, healthy carbohydrates and healthy fats. And then also if you're finding that you do have to snack, the same thing. So make sure those snacks are balanced as well to really keep that blood sugar within the point that you're not having to rely so much on cortisol.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for answering that, Marjolein. And just a quick reminder for our listeners and those joining us today, a reminder of how to calculate the correct bedtime.
What time do you have to wake up in the morning? What is your ideal number of hours of sleep? And then add take another half an hour off. That's a rough calculation. This is kind of based on common sense. If you know it's going to take you an hour to get sleep, you need to get in bed an hour before the time that you actually want to be asleep.
I also think it's those simple takeaways that are the most powerful though. So I think it's a really helpful reminder, especially that aspect of giving yourself time to prep before bed, because I think a lot of us can fall into that pattern, especially when we're so busy, right? Like you highlighted, everyone's in this sort of, a lot of us are in this busy phase a lot of the time. So actually reminding ourselves, you know, giving ourselves that time to calm down, to rest, to get into a sleep state, rather than having just gone through, you know, like watching all these digital, you know, screens and going from one to the next and then go to bed. It's like you need your brain and your body to take some time to rest, right?
Clinton's just made a really good point as well with sleep hygiene is screens off an hour before bed, because the blue light will inhibit your melatonin, your sleep hormone.
Absolutely. We've had a lot of comments here. Great presentation. Thank you so much, Marjolein. Let's give Marjolein another round of applause. Yay.
Thank you, Tanya.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
And DJ EK Dadbod.
That's it, Elliot. That is your name. In fact, that's your name from now on. You know, just that's it. That's how we'll refer to you. Okay, so moving swiftly on to